It's one of our favorite times of the year. Hello and welcome to Chelsea. It's wonderful to be back, and Chelsea has become part of my life, really woven into the warp and waft of my life. Mine too, Monty, mine too. Yes, what an incredible place. And just look at it all from here. I mean, I've had a good look around, but it's still first impressions, but there's some real variety that I love. Number 2 Goldens look the same to me, and also quality, very good quality, some really interesting. Well, I go with you on the quality, but I've had a look around, and to be honest, I think similar things appearing really, yeah, how we're gonna debate this all week long. I can feel this coming. Yeah. Oh, it's always the same. Okay, well, there are 35 gardens this year, so it's gonna take us a while to get around them all and debate them all. But we're starting here now. This is the RSPCA goal we've designed by Martin Wilson, and, we're looking down on it. It's a contemporary rectilinear space, and it's got this terrace up here, and there's a hide for viewing, the biodiversity in the gold from underneath. And in the old days this would have been much more formally planted, but it's the sort of rewilding effect. Now let's just use that. Yeah, I mean that the whole rewilding means debate. Let's not go there now, rumbles on. But this garden and in this they've made it very clear as showing how that you can have a lovely garden, quite conventional garden in many ways, and still encourage a lot of worldwide. Yes, and I think it succeeded. I mean, we've got layering, we got the trees, we got the shrubs or the underplanting perennials, but there'll be boxes and bird boxes dotted around. So it's really been nice. It's all through. But it's quite a cool space. It's quite chic, isn't it? Yes. And I think it will bed down masses of pollinating plants. Yeah. The one thing that I'm missing is a Polish. Yeah. It's got the sound of water. Natural pond would be lovely, and we know it's a magnet for what by 14 they made the point. Lots of wildlife and lots of beauty as well. And of course we will be exploring all the ideas and themes in much more depth across the week, and also showing you perhaps what you can achieve from these guns with a dose of Chelsea inspiration. Burnley. And it's not just us. Monty as all your favorites are here to bring you the very best bits of the show, and with so much to pack in this evening, we best get started. While coming up tonight on the RHS Chelsea Flower Show 2023, an event supported by the Newt in summer, we got some big guns tonight. Cleve West and Sarah Price and former People's Choice winner Tom Massey all on Main Avenue, and we're taking a first look at their finished gardens. But House Park Studios are back, and Aaron Anderson has inspiration for all our indoor gardening, and it's been a very exciting day on the show ground. There's even been a wedding monsoon. That's why I got my hat, but right now, we have a real treat. The Great Pavilion is back in all its glory, and so is our very own ray of sunshine, Carol Klein. Who better to show us around and get us in the mood for summer?
With plenty in the pavilions and bring out the sun and just a streaming of the summer ahead. But whilst we might struggle to grow some of these tropical viruses, there's plants galore in here to make the sunshine in your garden all summer long. Turn up the volume on color in your garden. Why not go for some of these Santa Disha hybrids? There are all sorts of brilliant colors. Things like this Sun Club over here, or Captain Brunello. Gorgeous glowing orange, really easy to look after. They're very tender, but on the other hand they can stand outside May right the way through to the frost, and you can either store them over winter in their pots, or you can take out their items and then report them in the spring. Begin to water from about May onwards and you should have absolutely masses and masses of color. A garden full of these is bonded to bring you sunshine. It's only more common wise. We're here, the garden's looking a bit drop. Or you think it might be. By the time midsummer comes, it's not too late to do something about it. Why not invest in a few Gladio local for display like this, bringing sizzling color to your garden? You can still buy coins like this. What you're looking out for, something that's really solid, good basil plate with roots emerging and a sign of little shoots on the top. Plant them really deep and you can either put them into pots or into a sunny, well-drained pot of the god. Within weeks you'll see shoots. Within a couple of months you should have splendid flowers just like this. No wonder they never really long for people to throw these out of the audience. Aren't they just magnificent? You can always depend on Birmingham City Council Stan's touch sizzle, and this year is no exception. In fact, it's even brighter than usual. It's composed of all sorts of different bedding plants. Each one of them contributed brilliant sunshine, but one of the predominant plants, these terrorists' temptation, Red and temptation orange. What patience those crows must have had, because all of them have been raised from cuttings. But if you haven't got the time or the patience, then why not grow some from seed? There's a wonderful strain of seed called Bishop's Children, and you can sow that along with tagates, all the different marigolds, all of those tender annuals in about February. They come on very, very fast indeed. And when your seedlings are up, pop them on individually, and with a bit of luck you'll have flowers that sum up. So if you're in need of some sunshine, there's a whole host of plants here to give you inspiration to turn up the heat in your own garden come rain or shine.
Carol isn't the only one giving us a splash of summer color today, because first thing this morning the gates opened for the grand unveiling of this year's show, and the whole show ground was buzzing with excitement. My wife, she got herself this as Chelsea. Really is one of our favorite decks. It's a great treat, it's mind-boggling really. I mean just the skill and the way that these designers can manipulate a space, and I think what they do here is spectacular. And he's like a dream come true. What they do, they're artists really. And it's just, around every corner there's a wonder, so yeah, I brought my folks to come and wander around. It's really special, like my first time, absolutely loving. It's just an amazing experience, we've been having a lovely day out. It's a great place for sons to take their mothers.
I'm a big planner person. I am. I'm sort of someone who keeps going around going. Would that work now? Well, in a shrub, in the dark, without any care. Lovely. And I have that one.
Well, I'm sort of more fruit and veg really. But my wife's a big gardener, she's a garden designer, so I'll go in the moment. Pull down and go, I do have it, and not raining, but not a beautiful, warm all day. Actually, it's kind of not sunny, but really boiling. So I'm sweating in people's gardens at the moment. I went into a shed full of mushrooms. It was too long.
Something very exciting happened here today, and at first for Chelsea there was a wedding on this very garden. Congratulations, my love. What a special occasion, and after the celebration, Adam Frost went to take a look around but garden, and we'll be seeing that later on in the show. Now this is Nurture Landscapes, one of 12 shotguns this year, and it has been designed by Sarah Price. Now I've been coming to Chelsea for a very long time and I'm always looking for something that's gonna stop me in my tracks, the system to redefine everything that I thought I knew and made me see the world with fresh eyes. And I think this is one of those gardens. And there are three things that stand out on immediate inspection. The first is the color palette. The colors here are extraordinary, usual for Chelsea garden, then muted the pinks and apricots and greys and touches of moth, and it spreads through from the planting, which is dominated by these wonderful arises from Benjamin, was very unusual colors. But it goes through in every single aspect, the aggregate on the full, the hard landscaping, the tables, the pots, the bowls, the water features, all of which have been made using recycled waste material and then bound together, and that gives it a sort of constancy and a fluidity which is really exciting and unusual. The walls are made out of straw bales and then lime rendered and painted. And of course when you use lime wash online, you don't get a consistent color. It changes. It changes when it's wet. It changes right as it dries. Different colors will dry and change at different rates. And combine that with the planting. This palette is so subtle, so muted and yet really strong. The other thing that is very unusual and striking is the confidence to do just a little. There's not too much of any. The planting is spaced out. The pruning is open, you can see through, you can look through plants, look through branches. You have these wonderful Scots pines, pruned to look like a stone pine and then just touches the richness at the end. The onions at the back, which are really strong, were planted into the ground, and that sense of holding back actually adds real power to the god. Chelsea tends to be such a bustling place, so busy and so much going on, and yet this is calm and poised, incredibly elegant and I think very strong, and I have to say that I'm coming away feeling inspired, surprised and delighted by seeing this. But I know that this is going to be one of those guys that every single day that I come back in this week, I'm gonna rush here to see it again. It really is that good.
As you walk down Main Avenue, you notice every one of these 12 show gardens this year is completely different. The designers have been set free to tell unique stories, and in some cases, these gardens really do stop you in your tracks. Take this one, it really is a show offer. This is Transcendence by designers Gavin McWilliam and Andrew Wilson. And Sophie caught up with him a few weeks ago as this incredible feat of engineering came to life. We've got a 6-meter cantilever, and that's what's going to give you this sense of immersion in the landscape here. I think each piece on the concrete campaign was 9 tons. They can't train because the tree's directly above us. We got the biggest high up in the country. Turning up to this stuff tomorrow. We're in uncharted territory, and confidence, I think confidence. Maybe not the word I'd use. I've asked me 3 days time, okay?
Wow, Goblin Under is incredible. It's huge. I can see why you're so nervous when I saw you last time. Oh yeah, just a bit. But we've asked, we literally just a hole in the ground and nothing else. And then since then concrete turned up and making it now fantastic. It is absolutely enormous though. I mean, if you do feel slightly various standing under here. It's meant to feel a little bit precarious, but the idea is that you walk into the garden and you're drawn upwards but standing under 56 pounds. Obstructive, but don't worry, the structural engineers were out. Yeah, I'm very happy to stand together. I mean, they're amazing. They're the guys that worked on this project. All stand-ups are 100% confidence in that. What was it like getting all this, all the concrete, everything in my skin without at least being touched? I think it's probably one of the most stressful things we've done ever. I think I've aged. Mum was relieved when it all went in. I've slept. I've started sleeping. I would happy face now. So you're gonna have sort of winding path through here, aren't you? That's right. Kind of not tough. Play. This is the main reason. In lots of ways, this is the common route that everybody has. You know, we all will die. If you still want, you could win. But it's not a windy road he wants to win, darn it.
I like the diplomacy between you two. You get on saying no. Absolutely hate each other, quoting "You've got a garden." We've got a garden. Might show me what you've done here because it's lovely. It's so delicate, isn't it? There are areas of kind of density of planting, and then the pathways that we were talking about the other day now have sort of drops down with people. He didn't want pathways. You know there are pathways, he said. Last time I said they weren't going to carpet, you said there were. And now he says they're always meant to be there, but they were informed. That's called compromise, isn't it? I was very good. That's why you chose so successful. I love the Oriental. That's amazing. They're white, and they will flicker all the way through the entire garden. so they go up into space beyond as well, so it's all interlinked. We were gonna have more trees than we actually took some out to create areas of light, so it could be we could put in more interesting funding in there as well. And we picked this phone, so it's got all these indentations in it, so we should get a bit of movement and play in there. I can't believe that 20 years since your father died. Yeah, you two met, you changed your career, you changed your life. And here you are, you've achieved what you've always wanted to do. Very much would have been impressed, wouldn't we? Hopefully. I think we've done him proud, and here we are on the finished garden and I'm with Rachel. It's come together in this garden, isn't it? It certainly has. And from here it looks really impressive and I'm just looking forward to exploring more. Yeah, it's very simple. Now you wanna pass down the middle, taking you towards a major feature, and then okay. Yeah, the other calls, which I know represent different routes through life going through the planting, but in simple, so it's all about the structure the materials are planting called working together for that goal, and I think it does work. I like the boundaries and the way it ties in with the paving and the very night. The likeness of the materials together, just a few rocks through the planting areas. And then we got the shipping trees to one of your favorites, O's. They're an absolute favorite clips here. Try Camp Foss, yeah, and they've got this. No, they're fairly substantial in terms of height, yeah, but they had this wonderful airy feathering nest to the leaves, so that the light just trickles down through and you get this beautiful dappled shadows on the ground. I think it's a perfect choice for this dog. Yeah. Shame aside and shining, because then you would have seen that. Yeah. But weren't they going to use a lot more of them? They were, yeah, almost double the amount, I think, and it would have been way too full and blocky and shady underneath. So I like the spacey, airy feeling of the whole garden and the plants. Perennial planting, is quite low. We've got the trees up there. So actually the middle space as you walk through this is what we're seeing, and it's all sort of quite open. You get a bit of sort of change in height here. I mean, they're not dramatically sort of tall shrubs and so on, but the year is fantastic, isn't it? Those sort of dome shapes and they just repeating through, and that sort of metaphor for life. You know that you have these things that mark, particular moments in your life when you get that. The deep reference. I mean, well, I'm on. Removed from a design perspective, but rather than just, having them uniform because it's quite a symmetrical layout, just dotting them random or sort of randomly with feeling. I would say through the garden that's a lovely rhythm and evergreen structure which all got 9 years. Well, what about the color palette? Lovely, it's really beautiful, lots of pale colors with your layer, the poppies. Beautiful, yeah. And when we are naturally being drawn up to the major figure on this 56-ton sort of cantilever structure, which is, it's oversized intentionally for the space because it is very powerful and it draws you towards it. Which is meant to do, and then you can hear guitar and you see the ripples of the water. Yeah. And it is quite you do emotionally engaged with it very much so. I think they've created an atmosphere here. Sort of calming, contemplative. Yeah, pretty much exactly what they were aiming for. And I love this snapshot you get through the roof of that. Yeah. Without that aperture, it would too heavy. But seeing the trees and having the light coming through the sky. Yeah, there's a few plants at the back. It just feels like that's a little bit of an after. So it would be nice if that tied into the plant because this is so good and it is good one. In amongst the nurseries and past specialists at the Florist of the Year Awards is taking place this time with the bins and lampposts. Now that might seem quite a tough ask, but actually people have taken to it with huge originality and skill. So here we have a lamppost and the plants swirling elegantly around it. I like this one too, particularly the back where you have a bit and then cascading out of it. Not rubbish, but glorious flowers spilling down to the ground and the whole thing supported by a framework of brambles. Obviously brambles are very much part of themes we see outside the show gardens where you have reclaimed materials, and we've talked about weeds, we've talked about wildlife, but also we've got installations here that are full of the richness you might expect from any cool design. I love the way that they've used imperial fertilers, for example, and there are anxious, so you have wonderful oranges and purples growing out of a bin, and as well as the floral displays, we've got installation, the two sitting side by side. So you have a really dramatic installation dripping with water with seagrass on here, wonderful mossy ones over there. It's worth walking through them, just absorbing the scale and imagination is used, and two things I really like about this is one, that was an awful lot more of British flowers being grown for cut flowers. This is something that is obviously environmentally broken and also really good to have native flowers included in what is essentially the artificial setup, and also Dr. clasping views, and they can be recycled, so lots going on here, but all in chew with whole spirit of the show. Now someone who's always got keen eye for design is Arid, and so she's been taking a look at the innovative indoor gardening on display in their houseparts.
Our love of houseplants is certainly not fading. Last year, 1 in 3 of us bought a houseplant, that's on average 2 every month, and it's the 18 to 24-year-olds who are the biggest spenders. This year, there are 6 studios here at Chelsea, packed full of inspiration to show us the very best in-house plant design. Imagine this as your work or play space. Fantastic studio. It's the best surely when the plants are center stage, and what the designer has done here is giving us this showcase living wall of tropical plants to show us how different plants need different light levels. What's really clever is that they put all of the variegated leaves toward this end of the wall, where there's more light, and as you come down, the leaves are getting darker and more solids, and that means that these plants require less light. Many of these plants start their life on the jungle floor. It's going to be much more shady, so in our homes with the light levels are lower, you can be sure that these plants are going to survive. Now if you want to carry on with that jungly theme and bring it outside, there are a couple of those plants that live normally indoors that can cope with a little bit of shady shelter. Things like this Stratoscantia, Nanic, or these chlorophyll items. You could mix amendments and burns and have them sort of sheltered near to the home, and the great thing is that all of the tropical plants in this studio have been grown here in the UK. Now if you're looking for something a little less traditional, I think the inspiration in here is really pushing the boundaries. This is where you can take houseplants to another level. What the designers have done is using a play-based substrate planted into it. Things like this trophy asparagus, and then taking driftwood and stone and sand to create this really impactful art piece. You've got houseplants and they've been a little bit more confident and push the boundary. Think out of the box and maybe you could end up creating something like this.
I'm really pleased that houseplants are getting a bigger footprint in the show, because the truth is they are the biggest thing in gardening over the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah, and a lot of people don't have any outdoor space at all. They can only grow indoors. Succulents are very trendy. You're right, it was popping up all over the place. Yeah, Javiera's here. Electric birras and their holiday plans. You know, holiday. And even a couple of weeks ago, I don't need any virtually perfect all. Well, we told you it's a packed show, didn't we? And we still have all this to come on the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, an event supported by the Meet in Somerset. Now Francis Tophill will be taking a look at the lake. This planting styles on display at the shows the gold medal winner Adam Frost Castle Design Eye over the RHS Feature Garden and meets up with its designer Manoj Malden, and we've highlights from the royal family visit earlier today. But first, royalty of the horticultural kind in the Great Pavilion Clarkston is just one part of a floral dynasty stretching back for decades. Returning after a 7-year absence, we were lucky enough to catch up with her on the build-up for the big day.
I'm gardening. I just love burying myself into the border and into the bees, and it's a lovely time to just relax. This is the Cherry Vale, just comes up from the Welsh coast and just drifts on, then disappears, and get wonderful rainbows which we have actually in the distance. I'm Claire Austin. Together with my husband Rick, we run Claire Austin Hardy Plant. We grow anything herbaceous and anything perennial, which includes bearded irises and also period. We moved here in 2010 and I started to create this garden. I can't grow some plants because the rainfall's too high, but the majority of perennials absolutely love this sort of climate. The plants in this garden are twofold. Really want my own pleasure because I absolutely love gardening, but secondly, I grow them to see how they perform. It's a sort of catalog, a live catalog of plants I trained as an illustrator. Only came into gardening when I joined my father's rose business. This year is my 40th year in the trade. I love my dog, absolutely love it. I keep seeing these little vistas of, for instance, in the back. There we have the which was planted by my mother, this cherry, and then underneath the woodland plant I gave a lot of inspiration really from my mother, who was sort of a relax. Gardeners and weeds would grow and she would allow things to seed around. This is my spring garden. A lot of plants here, or almost all the plants are herbaceous perennials, which means they die down in the autumn and grow again in spring, and they flower quite early. This is a geranium fawn, Alex Pink, which I hope I will be taking to Chelsea, and we have centuria, which are perennial cornflowers, and this is a centurion montana conia. She's a lovely, lovely pink. And then the little blue flowers are Brunnera. This is the field that we grow, our irises, mainly bearded irises, and some of the pioneers that we sell. The soil in this field is very rich, but it's also quite free draining. I think that the irises seem to benefit from that, and pears will grow anywhere on the nursery. All the irises are grown here and we pop them up in September, and in April I put them inside into a cold, unheated polytunnel and cross your fingers. So this is where we grow our irises to bring them on for Chelsea Flower Show, and these are the ones that I'm encouraging to grow. So this is a Siberian iris. They're growing most kinds of soil as long as they're not very dry, and to see if they're going to flow, I just feel through the system. I can't feel any flower spikes at the moment. There doesn't mean they're not going to flower because they tend to pop up very quickly, but this is Alchemilla cream dream. Its lady's mantle is a common name. It's a plant I found in your garden. Grow happily in a shady spot, and it's really nice for brightening up the garden. The mixes with yellow, which is often the color of moment. This is a geranium I found in my mother's garden and named it after her. It's called Patricia Josephine.
Claire, lovely to meet you. I've got you as a rose in my garden. A climbing rose. So it's so nice to meet you. Yeah, very floriferous you are too. And we're disease resistant as well. Well, I can see that now you've got your iris looking. Well, they are perfection. And there's a lot of iris out in the garden. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of ours. How easy or difficult is it to get? Because there's good news and bad news in Chelsea with Aries. This looks like a good year to me. Well, it's been quite difficult because we have such a cold April and May, and everything just stopped growing, all in March and April, and then it just then suddenly went quickly. So they have been really taxing. We started off with 900 irises and it's whittled down to just 200. We got a lot of portion that you're growing to get the good. Exactly, absolutely okay, and I mean, they all look great to me. Do you have any favorites here? Well, I'm very pleased to get Dusky Challenger into flower as the dark rich, dark petal, very large petal, zinc purple. So it's very popular. Everyone loves it, so it takes a long time for it to come into flags. The peppers are so big, but it has a gorgeous chocolate scent. You something I'll have to go and have a little with face right into the light blue one. Another Tool variety, what's that one? That was called their Stuka Rapids. And I love it because the flowers open all the way down the stem, so you get complete color, not just at the top of the flower. Well, okay, so it's just, yeah, lovely. It takes 4. And your brother David's here, waiting in the wings.
Hello, David.
Hello. Meet your sister. Hi. Sis, I love that you meet here every year. We do, yeah. I mean, is there sort of, horticultural rivalry between the two of you? Oh, I think we can handle the 3.
What? I've got another golem. There's room for both of us, I think. Yeah. We do totally different things. So I am totally perennials. These roses, end of support. You are roses big time. I will be visiting you later in the week. Yeah, we'll add that. I was here before her. I came in 19. Oh, here we go. It started it off first. David Austin roses stand here. 1982, when we're here, first you're here 1903. Oh, by 1 year. But you're the older brother, right? I said the right thing.
You did. She's big sister. Big. Well, this is lovely to see you both. Banksy. Earlier in the show, we had a sneak peek at the RHS Feature Garden, which was the venue to Chelsea's very first wedding. It's been designed to be a community garden, but Adam is here. Take a look at the design principles on show that we can all use at home. Chelsea Flower Show is full to the brim with beautiful gardens. What lies beneath that? Beauty? Gardening is changing. We have to be more sustainable. Think about the environment. So the materials we choose, the plants, and of course the way we build is becoming so much more important. This is an RHS Feature Garden and it's designed by Manoj Maldi and it's bright, called definitely colorful. This is not going to be everybody's covered tea, but if you look closely, it's that color that is holding this garden together. Look at that. That is a braille post. They relate to the fence, and the burglar Isgata breaks into 3 main spaces. Softly dumb, but again there was a quiet area. We just time to reflect here. It's about entertaining. At the end you've got the arbor providing that will shape, but also the opportunity just to get some climbers growing in front of me. That circuit is totally permeable. So as it rains, it goes down and it soaks back into the ground, so there's not any runoff. And then we look at the planting. There's one group of plants that have popped up, and that's the annuals, the via annuals and the short-lived perennials. First of all, you think when it's not really sustainable, you're going to be planting them all the time, but actually in reality these plants come up, they see the seed goes back into the ground. Whatever happens that winter, they will come up the following year. So that's a plant I definitely used as a gota, but not before we talk about this. God, you've got married. I did get married. It's quite beautiful place in America. Yeah. And what the opportunities are going, my own wedding present, I'm looking around and talking very much about sustainability, and I can see here, you know, you've got permeable surfaces, but what other features have you got in the garden that about stability? Because I know you've got community, but what about sustainability? For all the timber has been forced from sustainable sources, they all come from managed forests. The large limestone slabs, we've been very sustainable with the waste because what we did, rather than chuck the waste away, we've had them cut into these small slivers, these effects, and we've used them back in the design of the garden. And you talk about the research as well, and you know the oil change you've decorated. The bad sense of what I did was I wanted to upcycle old oil drums, and then I put out a post that I was seeking artists to come in and individualize each drum, and that's how communities come together. You know it. It is for this is for them to share. When you think about this, the whole garden is about sustainability. It totally is. It's a community garden. By bringing different community therein, what you're helping them to do is create support networks for themselves. So this garden is a totally sustainable garden for the community, which is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Enjoying married life. Thanks you. All week Adam will be sharing how other designers at Chelsea are using new and innovative ways to create their gardens this year and give us all ideas that we can apply to our own guns at home. Now, one firm favorite back for another year is the designer Tom Massey. In 2021, he won the BBC RHS People's Choice Award for the Yo Valley gun with its organic credentials. This time he's putting insects at the front and center of his garden design for the Royal Entomological Society. Insects really are the tiny engines that run the world. They do incredible work in our gardens, in pollinating our food, in keeping the world moving. Really, I'm Tom Massey. I'm a garden designer, and this year at Chelsea Flower Show, I'm designing a garden for the Royal Entomological Society, and they have really been at the forefront of insect science since 1833, so insects are really important in our gardens. You know, they pollinate our plants, they decompose waste, they do all sorts of services that we don't really think about. I don't say they're food for larger species like birds, for bigger mammals, for all sorts of wildlife, they are really vitally important. The insects even exist in the soil. You know, there's thousands of insects that live underground and do all sorts of work improving the soil, taking nutrients down into the soil, you know, really just doing so many things that we don't even know about. The bigger picture for us as gardeners is without insects, our gardens would look very different, very desolate, you know, our gardens disappear. So today we're at Thameside Nature Reserve, which is part of Essex Wildlife Trust, and the aim of today, I suppose, is to find inspiration for the garden at Chelsea Flower Show. So this is what's referred to as a brownfield site, and it is a former landfill site, which is quite amazing really. When you look at it now, you know it's covered in scrubland. There's all sorts of habitat you can see in the background, cranes, sort of old industrial architecture. This has now been transformed into this nature reserve that can support so many different species of plants and by and turn into. So I am not an insect expert. You know, I'm very interested in insects, but really my specialism is landscape and plants. And what I'm here to really look at and see is that relationship between the intersection between the plants. So this is hawthorn, and this is a really typical example of the fact that would start to colonize scrubland. And Horford is one of the species we're going to use at Chelsea. But you can see that, you know, the structure, the form, the shape just about to board as well. So by maybe he should be in full bloom. So this is a red dead nettle, and it's really interesting looking. You got bench here, it looks like a grassy meadow, but when you actually look into the detail, there's so many different species all coexisting in this really biodiverse matrix of ground cover plant. I've invited Ashley Griffin, member of the Royal Entomological Society, so we're going to go and explore, see what things we can find, and she'll help identify what we're trying to. I think this is actually really interesting aesthetically. You've got all sorts of different color, all sorts of texture. I love it because I just want to get stuck in and look for things, and I kind of imagine that that's how an insect feels, right? Like, oh, this is perfect, like there's so many different places for them to hide. What have you got in your trade? Actually wasn't searching through this decomposing wood. Here we've got a few pillbugs and some centipedes. There's no really interesting, how much life is just in even this tiny pile of deadwood that most people would just ignore. Is that an insect actually in there that is a really good spot on? That's a click beetle. They're associated with this kind of deadwood habitat, predating on other invertebrates in this area, feeding on the wood as well, helping break down that organic matter. Is it better to have with like this there's lost all his bark, or with some bark on it? Is there a kind of specification for the best type of deadwood? Ideally you want to have this stage because that bark is providing little cracks and crevices and basically shelter. You could imagine that insects crawling in there, finding a home? Yeah, under that barn absolutely. But that's really good to know. So we'll look for wood that's got barked on there to include the show. So the garden at Chelsea's a landscape that is really inspired by this kind of brownfield site. So you've got different types of substrate from crushed brick and sand and rubble. Lots of native species like the hawthorn that we've seen here. And there's this large insect eye lab. So the microscopes in the lab allow insects that found on the garden to be identified and then enlarged on this huge screen here, so that connects to the microscope. So it'd be really interesting to see where there are gardeners. Supposes is more covered in insects than others. I really hope to start to get people excited about it, and says we as gardeners are really important to insects. We really need to implement habitat, just create spaces that allow insects to thrive. Because without insects they are in serious trouble. There's so much to take inspiration from here, this kind of landscape here with the dead trees in the water for the bee banks and the piles of concrete and crushed brick. I'm really inspired now to translate this into a gardener Chelsea Flower Show.
There's no question that although that landscape is doing wonderful things and it's really interesting, it is a bit bleak. It's quite a stretch to take that and turn it into a Chelsea show garden, but Tom Rockitis, he achieves it, I think, incredibly well. There are a number of ways he does this. To start with, he'd be very generous in the area around the building. It's almost like woodlands, so you do have the whole border. There's a sense of woodland and intensity of planting, and then I'm rising up quite a steep ramp. By using different levels, it's immersive, so you're part of the garden. As you look in, there's a pond using the industrial way, so there's this sense of it being in the corner of a wasteland, but actually works as upon the planting is generous. The pollinating flowers let's cover. There is this sense that it's an interpretation of a pond that could be in any garden, but then as you move away, across on this side, we have very different type of parts. It's exposed, it's hot, it clears out. This is planting for really sharp drainage, really hot sunshine. And Sir Thomas has confidence to vary it, not to trumpet all the eggs in one basket. And then above it we have this scope, full form of the dead oak. There is a dead oak standing by the pond, and here it's sliced up. It immediately draws your eye, and yet really useful for insects. Tom, did you find it hard to take the inspiration and translate it into a girl? I think it was always been a long process, so sort of 18 months of designing and thinking and really trying to take that brownfield inspiration and turn it into a garden space. I really didn't want to just, take the literal representation. I wanted to show people that we can use waste materials, we can, elevate deadwood, we can artfully arrange these kinds of materials to create amazing insect habitat. Do you feel that gardens are a central sort of element in preserving our insects, or is this different, Adderall? No, I think gardens are essential. I think as gardeners we need to come together. I think it's so easy to be overwhelmed or feel impotent. But 30 million gardens in the UK, gardens that equate to an area the size of Wales, if we all come together, if we all start to use waste creatively, if we start to plant the pollinators, create habitat, have a small pond, have these spaces that insects can inhabit and they like, you just use more sustainable materials, we can really start to make a big change. And you have this extraordinary build. Tell me about that. So that the dome is inspired by a compound eye. The iridescent glazing is that kind of amazing iridescence that you get on insect shells. So the space is designed to be fun, to be educational. We're gonna have 100 school kids coming through very shortly. We'll be doing experiments. We are. We've got microscopes with there's a fit under one a ladybird. That I can do another. We're gonna be using the sweet best to capture things in the planting and really see what comes to visit the show. Well, we will come back and see that. But I think the gods great, thank you very much. Now habitat creation and wildlife-friendly Germany is only one of the emerging trends that Chelsea this year, and it's certainly not excluding others that you will find here. And here is Francis's guide to the colors and planting styles. I guess that we will all be wanting in our government very soon.
At the forefront of horticulture, The Chelsea Flower Show is where we all come to see the new and emerging trends in the gardening world. And of course it's about the overall design, but really it's all about the planting and how those plants have been used to hold the space together, create an atmosphere, and also how they used to define the style of the gardens. Having been here for only 24 hours, I can already see that there's a really overwhelming theme of a certain color scheme that Chelsea this year, and that is greens, whites, and then these pops of magenta. Now here you can see they're really used that well, and it's a small space. It just goes to show that even those of us with small gardens can do something like this, but there's lots of different kinds of whites used throughout this garden. Things like achillea and methonium here, but this year that's all been added to with this magenta. It's a kind of bold, dramatic addition, and it gives us sort of a sense of faded glory, classics like Circe and lovely thistles that work through everything. And it's just something that I've seen all over the face of the Chelsea Flower Show, and this garden, even on a very small scale, keeps its color scheme simple and epitomizes that something else that I won't call a new trend, but maybe you're seeing a bit of a resurgence, is the shrub. It's such a resilient thing to use in the garden. I think the reason for that resurgence is partly because the extreme weather we've been seeing. Shrubs that can have deep fruits are much more resilient to climate change, may also provide habitat for wildlife nesting spots, and even some produce beautiful flowers, so like this azalea. Amazing viburnum here as well. So there's so much versatility, and rather than having all the shrubs at the back as is tradition this year, they're being brought out into the sunshine, into the front of the borders. They're also much lower maintenance than lots of herbaceous perennials. So if you haven't got a lot of time, shrubs could be your answer. One thing you can't fail to notice at Chelsea this year is the weeds or wildflowers, depending on your viewpoint. But I hesitate to call it a trend because that sort of implies is here today, gone tomorrow, where in actual fact, I hope this is more of a sort of rethinking and retraining of the way that we see these plants, and hopefully we'll stick around for some time. We all know now how valuable these species are to our wildlife. But what's more challenging to us as gardeners is to accept that they may have a value for us as well, whether it's edibility. So things like sorrel, plantain, there is a use for some of these plants, and there is an aesthetic to them. Look at this hawk, but with this beautiful yellow flower. Now clearly the aesthetic of weeds all around Chelsea has been fully embraced this year, but now we have to work out if we can do it in our own gardens. But I can tell you from experience, the growing needs is actually a very challenging things to do. So they may look, they're just appeared here, but an awful lot of work has gone into making these gardens look the way they do.
Now if there's one designer who's known for pushing the boundaries, it's the creator of this thought-provoking space, the Centerpoint Garden. And after 7 years away, I'm pleased to welcome back to the show. Leave. I don't really see why. Did you come back? Well, I didn't really want to come back. To be honest, they would say that, but I'd sort of taken with SensePoint's approach, and it's a charity, and there they had funding from Project Giving Back. So it's a no-brainer at the end of the day. Yeah, well, it's a fabulous gone. People are really talking about your goal a lot. Good. So the thought-provoking aspect is definitely working. What's discard all about? Okay. So it's a very literal take on homelessness. We've got the demolished house. We've got a fallen tree, which are really strong metaphors for being fragmented and displaced and having your life turned upside down. So it's as simple as that, really. And we've got nature sort of healing all the scars of all this because it feels very nostalgic. Yeah. It's there something. Yeah. It's sort of somewhere. I used to play when I was a girl. Abandoned side. Exactly. But your connection and that connection with nature was just sort of so immediate. Yeah. How has it been interpreted? I mean, what's the feedback you've been getting these guys? Yeah, people a relationship. I mean that the heart is like the center of the house represents more love, security, and we wanted to make that feature. That's why you got these strong views. But yeah, people are relating to it in a big way, which is interesting. And you've got these nest boxes sculpted by Johnny Woodford. Yeah, they're great, aren't they? And we've had to block them up. We don't want birds nesting, otherwise we won't be able to take the garden down. But happily that enables us to talk about the fact that homeless people are stigmatized by landlords, so they find it very difficult to get rented property, and also 1 in 10 properties in this borough are empty. So shocking, isn't it really? Yeah, and we've also got the soundscape right. There's a sound, yeah, the soundscape, which evokes the memory of a family that once lived in this property, and we've got the mural which has got 120,000 dots, which represents each homeless person in the UK, each young person. And we're here, we are at the front of the house, and his part is Victorian tile part. This would be the house which has now been completely taken over by nature, and some of its, areas that were gardened, and a lot of it's just self-needed wild balls. Exactly. This is typical of an urban front garden in London. But we've got all sorts of weeds like Herb Roberts, Sticky Willy. It's all that sort of thing that's going on here, which is showing how biodiversity and nature is coming back in and repairing everything. Yeah, and what has the reaction been to your door? People, and so far everyone's saying they love it. But I'm gonna stand for about a few paces back when the public come in, that what people really think, that, it's one of those games. You're gonna get a reaction. I think it's genius. Good. Thank you. Well done. As the pinnacle of all flower shows, Chelsea has always been a firm favourite with gardeners and royalty alike, and this year it was quite a stir on the show ground, with the royal family arrived to take a look around earlier today. It's been a long time since His Majesty. As the pinnacle of all flower shows, Chelsea has always been a firm favourite with gardeners and royalty alike, and this show's no different. I was quite a stir on the show ground that the royal family arrived to take a look around earlier today.
It's been a long time since His Majesty has walked through these gates at the Chelsea Flower Show. The last time he was here, he was a prince. Now, 8 years later, he is returning as King Charles III, accompanied by the newly crowned Queen. The first garden the king visited was inspired by a mountain in South Korea. It was designed by John Hwang, and the king clearly likes it that you've had so many famous people in your garden today you didn't know who anyone was, except if their king was that one. Is that what you're saying? Very special. The king. Not many people hooked the king. Why? Because he's the king. That's very special. At Prince of Wales, he was for many years a patron of the Samaritans, which is why he chose to visit Darren Hawkes on his garden. For the Samaritans, after all, this work was meant to you to be visited by the new king. I mean, it's a huge privilege to real interest in the trees that we've got here. We spoke about serenity and calm spaces to talk and listen, which is what this game is all about. The king has spent a lot of time talking to the designers this evening, getting right into the gardens like this one designed by Sarah Price, inspired by the artist plantsman Cedric Morris. It's just always wonderful when you're talking to someone who understands plants. He loves art, he loves painting, and the summer comes, the sun has come out. The Queen is also clearly enjoying herself here at Chelsea. She has stopped at every single garden on Main Avenue. Quick Commander came in, and the first thing she said is, "It feels so calm." In fact, she said, "Actually, you can leave me here." Oh, did you? Which is lovely.
Well, having a king visit Chelsea. That's sister when you really, isn't it? Yeah, something differently. Well, I can't wait to see what else is coming. It's already looking like it's going to be a wonderful week, as Monday and tomorrow of course is the big one, because tomorrow is mental state. Yeah, there will still be a lot of nervous people out there waiting for their results. And what about Best Show Garden? I've written my prediction. I have my head, but I am very clear. And this year I'm gonna be right. I'm not looking. I've always done my. And it's been interesting to see. I can't remember who got it right last week. We might tell you someone. I tell you what, if I'm wrong. Yes, the judges are going to need good talking to you this. Oh, I thought you said you were wrong. You might buy me a drink. No chance. Everyone. Well, okay, that's signed and sealed, so let's see how that pans out tomorrow. And Monty is your favorite part of the show. I know you love this thing. It's a return of Ask Nancy and Joe to kickstart us this year. We've got a very special question. Why can't I grow delphiniums? Lilies of the Valley and Dallas, I buy them every year. And I put them in and they don't love me. What we're doing wrong? Oh, quite a series of problems there. Let's break it down. Delphiniums, notorious for being eaten by slugs and snails when they're young, and lily at the valley. I've never had any success with them in London because slugs and snails, and they like sort of damp, shady conditions, which is where they hang out. Yes. So I think that would account for those two, I think, dangers. There's a tendency to put 'em out too early. Yeah, and they don't grow and therefore they get even. This year, it's been cold till late. So I would say pop 'em up, grow them in a protective place, a windowsill greenhouse, whatever you've got. Plant 'em up after Chelsea. That's their Chelsea week, the mark of the tender plants, absolutely. And the nice big plants and plants don't get eaten if they're growing strongly. If those early days when they get, with the other two up, maybe put them in a greater grit over the top and just try and get them going as well. Well, that's useful to Joanna, that helps, and we love to hear from all of you. So the details how to get in touch with us on the screen, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. That's just about it. Don't forget to tune in on YouTube, Green Garden Plants channel, at 8 o'clock tomorrow night to see if we, or at least I, have got our predictions right. So until then, good night. Good night.